You recently tweeted, the nurses are exhausted and dying trying to care for Americans. Tens of millions are being pushed into poverty. Frontline workers can't believe anyone even gives a damn anymore. Hello, America. When is it time to stop making it work? We have to take seriously a mass labor strike. This was very exciting to a lot of ears because a lot of leftists have been saying, we got to do a general strike. We got to do a general strike. But no one seems to really know how that would work or what that would entail.
Yeah.
What did you mean when you tweeted that?
Well, I mean, I was serious about it. I didn't just tweet it like it was a cool thing to say. But I'll be very honest. Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't been willing to use the word strike in this country. I mean, there are labor leaders and there are labor academics who said to me during the government shutdown, "Are you sure you want to say strike? Isn't that kind of dangerous to say that?" And I was like, "Say it. Say it. Strike, 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 strike." You know. So I have to tell you, I mean, when I tweeted that, it's not like I thought, okay, we are ready to go out on a general strike tomorrow. I didn't. But we have to be able to raise this into the conversation. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to socialize this idea among workers and among leaders that this is a possibility that we have to take seriously. You know, I mean, I was just thinking last week, if they don't get relief to the American people before they leave town, what am I going to do? I was thinking, would anybody care if I chain myself to the Capitol and get arrested? Would anybody care if I chain myself to the Capitol and get arrested? And, while this is being reported, I say that no flights are going to leave DC the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be able to talk about these things. And so I was very serious when I wrote that tweet. But I'm also going to tell you that it is going to take I understand it's going to take a lot more discussions. It's going to take a lot more realization that this is actually a power that we have today. It could happen tomorrow if there was suddenly an awareness. If people suddenly understood what the demands are. The demands are people are dying, people are starving, and you got to get this relief package passed. Now, I'll tell you, it's half of what they were talking about before, but they got to get it passed. They got to get it passed right now. It's 4 months of relief. But if we don't do this, we're going to fall so far off the cliff. And the truth is that people are more likely to fight if they have a little bit of something to fight with. That's just the truth. Okay. You can either push people so far that they've got nothing left to lose, but I'll tell you, it takes a long time to get to that place. So if we really want to fight forward, we got to lock in whatever we can now. And right now we're talking about 4 months of emergency relief to make sure that Americans don't fall off the cliff, to make sure that people don't fall out of their homes, and to make sure that we're getting ready for a different playing field to be able to fight for more. So I'm one who says we got to lock this in.
I hear that. And, that's obviously, part of the calculation that was made before the election. I think part of the calculation was an unwillingness. And Pelosi said this outright, an unwillingness to allow Trump to take credit for it in a way that might have buoyed his electoral chances. But, the counter argument is when we passed CARES, that was an enormous amount of negotiating fodder that was off the table for Democrats, and that we should have asked for more in the first instance. Now we're doing another round. And the counter argument to what you just said is, if we can get people through the holidays, the Democrats have less and less negotiating power, particularly if we don't actually win these Senate seats, right? And that people have obviously been struggling a great deal for a long time. There was a crisis that existed before the pandemic. It's been exacerbated. The end of eviction moratoriums and relief, et cetera, is going to put an even sharper point on this in the coming months, and that there might not be a better time. And to Boots Riley's point, there have been a lot of these spontaneous strikes happening in the country, 1,158 since March, school teachers over hazard pay and all these kinds of things. Yeah. What about the argument that this is the moment that that we need to really extract what we need in a meaningful way?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the problem is that we were starting from an assessment of how is this politically going to play out. And that's why the elections are close, because people can't tell. People can't tell who's fighting for them.
Right.
And some people, like, why would you even participate in a system like that? So if the question is who's going to get the credit or who's going to get the most blame, we've lost before we started.
I agree.
Do the fucking right thing. I'm sorry, but you know what? That's it. That's it. And if you do, people are going to follow you. You don't do a political assessment about who's going to get credit here. People are hurting. People are dying. People are not making enough money. We had a wage crisis and a jobs crisis in this country before we even started. This has only opened it up to the problems that exist. Pick your issue, because there's plenty of them to fight on. And I'll have to tell you that anyone who talks to me about whether or not it was a political assessment to do a relief bill better keep walking.
Yeah.
Because that means you're not doing your job. You're there to take care of the people. You're there to take care of the general welfare of this nation. Yeah. And if you are, this is the problem. This is the problem, because we have led ourselves to believe that it is either, the evil or the lesser of the evil.
Yeah.
And that is not the question. The question is, what is going to do the most good? And so a political assessment about whether or not, I get it. We had to get Trump out of office. We did. This was like an existential threat. And I don't want to minimize that. I do not want to minimize that. Okay. But we are in the middle of the biggest crisis in 100 years in this country. And in March, it was such a shock to this nation that the politics were such that we had a bipartisan deal. Now, yeah, sure, the deal was tilted more for corporations in the most part, other than the package that I was talking about, right? Yeah. Where the unions designed it. It was tilted more for the corporations, but it was $2.2 trillion that was agreed upon. And I want to take you through the process here. The House normally does the spending bills. The House didn't have a bill. Mitch McConnell took control of the process and announced on a Friday, I think it was March 20th, that he had a bill for $1 trillion that was going to be all about liability waivers, and it was going to be all about, giveaways to corporations. And the Democrats in the Senate grew a spine. And on Sunday, I remember getting the call from Senator Markey, and he was giddy. He was giggly. He said, Sarah, you're going to be so proud of the Democrats. We decided to stand together, and we said no. And I'm like, yes, Ed, that's great. That's fantastic. And you know what? That started a real negotiations. And in 36 hours later, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer were going to the Senate floor and saying, we have a bipartisan agreement. 36 hours later, okay? Because the Democrats said no, and they stood together. And our airline provision, the union provision, was still not agreed to. It wasn't agreed to until 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 hours later. So we were still fighting it out through the night. But, that is the kind of power that you have when you stand together and you say no, and you put clear demands on the table. And yeah, it wasn't perfect. It was $1.2 trillion better than what it had been 36 hours earlier, and helped a hell of a lot more people, included the $600 plus up, included the checks, right? That helped a lot of people. And that was voted on 24 hours later in the Senate, 36 hours later in the House, and was signed 6 hours later by the president. Within 5 days, that changed because people decided to have a backbone, and there were real demands coming from the American people. That can happen. I want people to take that in and remember that and understand that that was the shock of coronavirus and the whole country going, holy shit, right? And everyone paying attention, everyone focusing in. Imagine if the labor movement were just doing that now. We would have this $2.2 trillion, or we would have these $3 trillion on the table well before now in Americans' hands if we had that kind of focus.